What does it mean to be great? Great. What does it mean to be great? Well, over the course of my lifetime, there have been celebrities who have been considered great. When we think of great actors, names like Marlon Brando or Clint Eastwood or Jack Nicholson or Tom Hanks might come to mind. Or when we think of great actresses, names like Katharine Hepburn or Betty Davis or Meryl Streep or Julia Roberts might come to mind. When we think of great athletes, we're not going to think about last night's game, okay? But when we think about great athletes, names like LeBron James or Michael Jordan or Muhammad Ali might come to mind. In fact, when I was younger, I remember the hockey player Wayne Gretzky. How many of you remember Wayne Gretzky? And he was actually nicknamed the Great One. Wayne Gretzky, the Great One. And nowadays, it's become kind of trendy to call great athletes like Simone Biles, the Olympian this summer, or Tom Brady, call them the GOAT, the greatest of all time, right? But what does it mean to be great in God's eyes? What does it mean to be great in God's eyes? That is the real question for us. Today's gospel lesson begins with two of Jesus' disciples grasping for greatness, or at least greatness as they understand it. James and John want to sit at Jesus' right hand and at Jesus' left hand when Jesus comes into his glory. They want to be great. They want to be the goats of the kingdom of heaven. But they clearly don't know what that means. Jesus offers them this path to greatness, but it's a very different one than what they had in mind. And Jesus then calls all of his disciples together, and he says to them, "Whoever wishes to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wishes to be first among you must be slave of all. For the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many." Serving others is the path to true greatness. Serving others is the path to true greatness. Jesus tells us that, and he offers himself, he offers his whole life as a model for this, a model for how we can become great, or great in God's eyes. Now, Jesus is not usually called the Great One or GOAT. He's not the GOAT. But there is no doubt that there is no single person throughout the course of history who had more impact or who altered the course of history than Jesus. Even non-Christians would agree with that. Jesus was great by almost any standard that we would use. But in this gospel reading, he does something that's actually kind of radical, if you will. He redefines greatness for all of us. He tells us that the path to true greatness lies in service. The path to true greatness lies in service. And he not only teaches us about this path to greatness, he lives it. He lives it. The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. When we think about Jesus' life, it's marked over and over again, not by worldly greatness, but by humility. His life is marked by humility. God's Son could have been born anywhere, But he was born in that small town of Bethlehem. His first bed was a feeding trough for animals because there was no room for him and for his family at the inn. Jesus grew up in this small, unimportant town of Nazareth. And even one of his future disciples would ask, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Jesus wasn't trained to be some great religious leader. He was the son of a carpenter, and he was trained for that line of work. He spent his first 30 years of his life virtually unnoticed by anyone. Even when he began his public ministry, he went about the countryside of Israel not seeking greatness, but serving and teaching and preaching. And after 3 years, he went on into Jerusalem, not to be received as a great king, but to be handed over to death. He washed his disciples' feet. He allowed himself to be arrested, to be tortured, to be humiliated on the cross. He died a shameful death. And why? Why did he do all of this? Because the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life for us. Jesus' life was always, always great in the eyes of God, in the eyes of his heavenly Father, but not so much to the world. The world has always had a different idea of what it means to be great. So did Jesus' own disciples. Jesus came not to be served, but to serve. To serve. And he invites us. He invites his disciples, and he invites us, his disciples, to do the same. To serve others, to spend our lives looking for opportunities to give to others because of what Jesus has given to us. It's pretty countercultural, isn't it? When we look around our world today, clearly the more popular choice is to be served. I mean, most vacation destinations don't try to lure people in to their place by inviting them to come and to cook their own meals or to clean their own rooms. And most restaurants don't try to attract customers by inviting people to come and to do their own dishes. In the eyes of the world, the path to greatness clearly lies in being served more than in serving. We can be assured, the world says, that we have made it when we spend our entire lives being served by other people. But even for people who have achieved that goal, they're often left with this emptiness in their lives. Being served by others might make us comfortable, but doesn't make us happy. We might be comfortable, but it doesn't make us happy. Albert Schweitzer was a famous Lutheran missionary, and he knew this very well. He was the oldest son of a pastor in Germany, but he didn't start out, actually, as a missionary. That wasn't his life aspiration. He studied theology. He was also a very gifted organist and musician. He was ordained, and he became a world-renowned theologian at a young age. He was incredibly gifted. But when he was 30 years old, he decided to rather abruptly change the course of his life, and he went on to become a mission doctor. He abandoned this promising career that he had. He went to medical school, and he became a doctor. And then he went to Africa to be a medical missionary. And eventually he built a hospital, and he set up leper colonies. And in 1952, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for all of his efforts. More than all of those accomplishments, what stands out to me, or what strikes me most about Albert Schweitzer, is that he discovered the secret, the wonderful secret of our Christian lives. It's that we are called not to be served, but to serve. And when we live with this desire to serve others, we find happiness, we find meaning, we find fulfillment that we can't get by being served. Albert Schweitzer summed it up in this quote: "Every person I know who has been truly happy has learned how to serve others." Those who are truly happy are not spending their whole lives lying on a beach, as enticing as that might sound, or having people cater to their every whim. Those who are truly happy, those who have found a meaningful life, have learned how to serve others. When we think about it, many of our ministry opportunities here at Lakewood United Methodist Church give us a chance to learn how to do this. Serving others makes God happy. It's what Jesus teaches us. And it's an essential part of being a faithful disciple. Serving others makes God happy, but it also makes us. It makes us happy. It makes us feel like we're making an impact. Because we discover that life is not all about us and our own happiness or our own fulfillment or comfort. Everyone who's truly happy has learned to serve others. Another well-known Christian who recognized this in a very powerful way was Mother Teresa. I'm sure you're familiar with her. She served the poorest people in India, truly living as a servant of people. And many people wanted to live the way she lived, and so she began teaching this simple path. And she had a book then that was called The Simple Path, and in that book she writes, "The fruit of silence is prayer. The fruit of prayer is faith. The fruit of faith is love. The fruit of love is service. The fruit of service is peace." The fruit of service is peace. This expresses a powerful truth. A faith-filled life, a faith-filled silence will lead us to prayer, which leads us to faith, which leads us to love, which leads us to service, which leads us to peace. Peace, that thing that the world hungers for, that thing that we all long for, is the fruit of service. Peace is the fruit of service. To put it another way, everyone who's found happiness and true peace has learned to serve others. That peace that we long for, that peace that the world hungers for, cannot be measured in the number of servants that we have, but by the number of ways that we serve others. So here at Lakewood United Methodist Church, there are many opportunities, many ways to serve. Last week, after our stewardship speaker or preacher, and we had that brief State of the Church address, we all went downstairs for some soup, and we had placemats that were there on the table. And the placemats listed the many ways that you can serve through our church's ministries. You can serve at our community meals on the second Saturday and the fourth Tuesday of the month. Can always use help. You can serve at the Cleveland Food Bank. Did you know that there's a group of people from this church who go every Monday morning and serve at the Cleveland Food Bank? You can serve at Trials for Hope. Jonathan Gray is always looking for people to help put food bags together and to go out to the homeless camps throughout the greater Cleveland area to share with the unsheltered in our community. You can be part of the community engagement activities that we do here at the church. We set up booths at the Lakewood Arts Festival and the annual Meet the Trucks event, or hopefully at some point we go back to being a part of the 4th of July parade again. You can be part of our prayer shawl ministry or go on the annual mission trip. And here within the church, there's so many ways to serve. We are in desperate need, hear me on this, desperate need of van drivers. If you can drive, you can be a van driver as long as you have a valid driver's license. We need van drivers. We need children's ministry workers. We need people who will run tech at both of our services. We can always use help as lay readers and liturgists. We need ushers and greeters. We need people to serve on our finance team and to be on the counting teams on Monday mornings to count our offering and get the deposits to the bank. We need people to serve as trustees. It takes many people to keep the ministry of this church vital and relevant. Last Sunday, as we celebrated the baptism of Barry Shepard, who comes to Traditional and also Impact. He's at Impact this Sunday. He popped up here to say hello a few minutes ago. But as we celebrated his baptism and as we welcomed him as a member of this church, we as a congregation renewed our vow, our membership vow to faithfully participate in the ministries of the church by our prayers, our presence, our gifts, our service, and our witness. Today you have the opportunity to make that commitment real. To make it a reality. Many of you received a commitment card in the mail last week. If you didn't have one, I saw a few people pop over to the table when I made that announcement earlier this morning. There are commitment cards out on the table out there too. Completing this commitment card, it's helpful for us as a church as we plan our budget for 2025, of course, but it's so much more than that. The card reads, I left mine down there, but the card reads, in response to all that God is accomplishing in and through Lakewood United Methodist Church, I plan to faithfully participate in the ministries of the church by my prayers, presence, gifts, service, witness, by my prayers. Are you willing to pray intentionally for our church every day? For our church leaders every day? Are you willing to be added to our prayer chain? Are you willing to pray? Pray for the ministries of this church. Presence. Will you make church attendance a priority in your life? Will you attend a Bible study or a small group? Will you be present to the things that happen in this building and out in our community on behalf of our church? Gifts. Will you invest? Will you invest in the church's ministry financially by giving on a regular basis? Will you invest your time? That service. Will you regularly volunteer in our church's ministry? Will you be willing to serve in a leadership role? Witness. Will you invite others to participate in the church's ministry, to worship with you here at Lakewood United Methodist Church? Will you share our church's posts? That's a simple way to do it. Share our church's posts on social media. Will you let the love of God shine through you and say, hey, worship at Lakewood United Methodist Church fills my spirit? Will you witness? Will you be a witness? During the offering, we invite you to place those cards in the offering plate as your offering of your whole self to Jesus Christ and to the work of God that's happening through Lakewood United Methodist Church. Jesus needs you. Jesus is counting on you. Our church needs you. Our church is counting on you. Our church needs your support to make this a vital and relevant ministry, to help to shine God's light in our community, to help us build God's kingdom here on earth as it is in heaven. The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. And he invites us to do the same. Will you join him in that mission? Amen.